Hello folks, welcome back to the program. This is Chris live in central Pennsylvania. My opening monologue. I'm going to ask politely, and I'm not going to attack people, but I'm going to make the following statement. I ask that you please cease and desist this intentional effort to divide and bifurcate those who are standing up for South Africans, particularly the comments yesterday when the interview that Byron had conducted on Morning Shot with Mark Oppenheimer. I was referred to go to that, and I did, and there's a spot where it says there's no evidence that refugees had come. And I said, well, if he's saying that, then he's basically calling me a liar. And then we talked on Wednesdays with the Colonel with Ronaldo, and Byron let us know that those interviews were recorded some time ago, at which time probably there was no evidence other than my word. But anyway, Byron is entitled to a difference of opinion. In fact, we encourage differences of opinion. If everything was the same, we all agreed on everything, it would just be an echo chamber. People in the center and people in the center right are welcome to disagree on things. I disagree with people's stances against Donald Trump bombing the nuclear facilities in Iran. I fully supported that. Well, Candace Owens didn't, Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't, Alex Jones didn't, and they became adamant lunatics against Donald Trump as a consequence of that. Well, I disagree with them, but that is their prerogative to be foolish. Excuse me, I've got flashing screens over here driving me nuts. So I'm going to ask people politely to cease and desist. It came to my attention, I've seen a screenshot from a user who's a follower on my channel who wrote vile and disgusting things about, a couple of people did, about Byron. Apparently people are also sending him emails. Please stop. I appreciate the enthusiasm and support for my channel, but if it means that you're going to attack other people, particularly with abusive commentary regarding their heritage, their skin color, their ethnicity, or their faith, I don't want you watching my channel. This is not a channel that supports bigotry. That's for the left. That's for people like Dan Quarter and for the flying monkeys from Sunnyside. They're the bigots who hate people, especially Christian white males who are heterosexual. Those are bigots. Those are haters. We do not hate people on this channel. We hate political nonsense, like, for instance, the push for transgenderism to pretend that 5% of our children are trans, which we know is not true. But we have empathy for people who genuinely have gender dysphoria, for example. So if you hate people because of who they are, you're in the wrong place. And if you think that I am like that, then I don't know what you've been listening to for 5 years. I have never, ever give any impression against any organization. We have hate wankers who steal my content and alter it and try to pretend that I'm a person I'm not. But my entire life has been devoted to protecting humanity. And you will not use my name to attack other people. If you meant well by it, I appreciate that you mean well, but your approach was incorrect. Stop it. Full stop. Done and dusted. Finishing clar. And if you're one of the people who wrote something like that, if you're writing something nasty to Byron, I'd ask that you politely send him an apology for your overexuberance. If this means you won't watch my channel, then so be it. I didn't create this channel to be an echo chamber to attract bigots and racists and anti-Semites and black haters and white haters. I made this channel to share news and give thoughtful, cogent, insightful analysis, which is what I do. In the face of bigots and racists on the left and right, attacked by eucalyptus-swilling tea drinkers from down under and their sycophants lying about me, claiming I work for the CIA. I wish I could use the $200,000 a year that I would make there as a senior executive service level 1. That would be fantastic. Be great. But I don't. Also being attacked by them, being attacked by the left called a Klan member and a white supremacist, being attacked by black supremacists on the same basis. People with small minds and very little intellectual capacity. Don't be part of that crowd. If you are part of that crowd, I ask you to leave. And if I lose subscribers, fine. We're not here to abuse people. We are here to criticize legitimately public figures and failures in society. But I ask you politely. I've done a short on this. That's my opening statement. If you don't like it, well, I'm not going to apologize for my position. People who want to be abusive can foot sec. Cheers.
The sun rose slow on a broken town. Factories closed, machines shut down. Promises made, but none were kept. Dreams turned to dust while the people wept. 90 days of fleeting chance, a lifeline lost in a reckless dance. The clock ran out, now it's too late. Unemployment's the cruelest fate. The tariffs came, they hit like a storm. Families braced to keep their homes warm. A pause was given, a moment to act, but the time was wasted, that's a hard fact. 90 days, a fleeting chance, a lifeline lost in a reckless dance. The clock ran out, now it's too late. Unemployment's the cruelest fate. Leaders spoke with words so grand, but their hollow deeds we can't withstand. The people begged, the people cried, now hope's a stranger on this side. Misery's knocking, poverty's near, a future clouded by doubt and fear. If only they'd fought to make things right, we wouldn't be lost in this endless night.
Down by the lot near the old cafe where the sun fries cars all night and day, there's a wild crew doing what they do. Yeah, you know them, the parking lot crew. Refugees with moves so tight, waving cars in left and right. 10 ways to say, yo, park that straight. 12 for bro, you're 20 late. Neanderthals in safety vests, snack in hand, but doing their best. One grunted loud, broke out in a jig. Turns out he just wants a parking gig. Canines bark like they run the block. Chased a drone down, beat the clock. One gave change with a tail wag spin. That dog's got tips and a toothy grin. Who you gonna call when the lot gets loud? Parking cones up and they're drawing a crowd. Whistles blow and the scooters fly. It's a parking crew and they're riding high. From the streets of town to the lot bazaar, they'll guard your ride like a superstar. Yeah, from Joe's streets to America, it's the funky, fearless parking lot crew. Car guard shout near the garbage bin. Who parks scale? You let them in. They blow their whistles in perfect time, like a backup band with a traffic sign. Then here comes Wyatt, the colonel boss. Duct tape boots and a look that's sauce. Rides a scooter with flashing beams. Salutes pigeons, yells at ice cream. Men, dogs, apes from a line. No dents, no scrapes, no overtime. If they park like chaos, made a plan. Fight them twice and be the man. Who's got the beat in a vested hat? Parking legends funky like that. Guard your eye with soul and flair, and a hi-fi breeze in the summer air. From this lie here to America, it's the wild, proud parking lot crew.
Marvin Devine. I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating. Thanks to all the rumors you be claiming. It's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
Welcome back, folks. It is Thursday, July 3rd, one day from the United States celebrating its independence. Our Declaration of Independence declared on the 4th of July, 1776, 249 years ago. Next year will mark 250 years as an independent nation, a nation that was in grave trouble just 8 months ago, on a quick path to recovery now, insolvency and rational foreign policy and domestic policy. We are back on the path despite the effort of leftists out there. Welcome back to the program. It is a nice day. Welcome to all the Neanderthals, the canines, the right-wing podcasters, and any and all aspiring car guards out there. Welcome back. It's always a pleasure. Got plenty of news to go through today. My opening monologue was intentional. The audience is a bit larger now, so I'll briefly talk about that. Yesterday, a conversation came up in the chat about a video that Morning Shot had from Byron Shepard, in which he said there was no evidence that there were additional refugees here. And I said, well, if he said that, he's basically calling me a liar. Well, the video was recorded some time ago, but I'll stand by what I said. But people took offense. People were very devoted to my channel, and I appreciate the devotion to me and my channel, but that's not cause to go attack people or to unsubscribe to channels or send nasty emails. It's not necessary. That's simply dividing people who are on the same side. The circumstances of Byron Shepard's life and my life are very different, but we share many of the same views, and we get along perfectly fine. We have a segment on this program called Briberies. I would ask the people who were nasty to Byron apologize to him and remove your comments from wherever you placed him, whether it was on his channel or mine. I couldn't find the nasty comments on my channel, but apparently I have a screenshot of at least one person's comments posted on his channel. That's unnecessary. If you want to be angry at somebody, reserve your nonsense for the flying monkeys from Sunnyside and the beanie-wearing, condom-looking fools who are out there in South Africa. That's where your ire should be directed, not at people in the center or center-right who are standing up for South Africans. We can have differences of opinion. Otherwise, it's an echo chamber. There's no reason for an echo chamber. Now, I think this all kind of started when Byron invited me to sit down and chat with him when I was in PE back in May, or was it April? Byron and I sat down. We had a conversation. It was a Lecca conversation. And during it, he made a comment about the refugee program. And I said on camera, I said, ouch, you're going to get flamed for that one. And he did get flamed for it. And then another comment and another comment. Look, I appreciate people telling me if they see something they disagree with, let me know. And that's fine, and I'll deal with it. But he's welcome to his opinions, as am I. But no one's welcome to abuse based on their appearance, their skin color, their faith, their ethnic origin. That's unacceptable. Unacceptable. And last night we dealt with a similar situation. Somebody thought they're being cute, and they claimed they weren't being. But you were very much being cute last night in the Night Owls broadcast by making a statement claiming, well, what culture did they have 500 years ago? I mean, that was an obvious attempt to denigrate black Africans. There's no need for that. There's no need for that whatsoever. If you want to promote one group over another, then simply promote the achievements of another group. Simple as that. Simple as that. There was a time when Europe was in the dark ages and the Chinese were much more advanced than us. Their civilization was far in excess of ours. Angkor Wat had a far more advanced civilization than Europe at some time. Even in the Americas, we had advanced civilizations that built entire networks of cities in Central America, which tamed the tropical jungles and fed millions of people in a very impressive civilization until they went wackadoodle and started, sacrificing humans. So, we all come at different stages at different times in history, and we must remember that. Europeans exterminated people for centuries. It's a dark history. Europeans threw their feces into the street right outside their homes and wondered why they got cholera. Dumbasses. They didn't have the concept of modern concept of infectious disease. So before we denigrate other people, whether you're white or you're black or you're brown or yellow or green, look in the mirror. None of us are perfect. The history we come from isn't perfect. My ancestors were Vikings. They conquered the known world. And they didn't always do so nicely. Their ideas weren't always the method they used to conquer places. Sometimes it was ideas, but it wasn't always. And there you have it, folks. Let's get to the news. Let me see the chat here really quickly here. Thanks for everything you've done for us as well as Byron and Ronaldo. I agree with you. People need to calm down with Byron and stand together. Exactly, Matthew. People need to stand together. No, the country name change was just a matter of time. It was a matter of time. But it's not going to happen, I'm thinking. No, the Gettysburg battle, I think, ran through, did it run through the 4th? It's the 2nd through the 4th, I think. Yeah, Gettysburg is huge. Today's a big day. In fact, I think I'll go to Gettysburg later this afternoon and do some filming. What do you guys think? Should I go to Gettysburg? Maybe do a live stream from Gettysburg? Would anybody be up for that? That would be interesting, I think, because it's the anniversary of the battle. So what's the thoughts on that? Any thoughts on that? American Civil War doctors did not know to wash their hands. Yeah, and that's why we had all these gangrene amputations. That would be awesome, says Steve. Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, Rhodesia and Zimbabwe was a much easier thing to change, Kai, because Rhodesia was named after a person who was denigrated. Cecil John Rhodes was attacked, and it was easy. He's a colonist. He's a racist. Yeah, and so they went after him. The difference with South Africa is South Africa was a compromise. I mean, the Dutch, or not Dutch, excuse me, the Voortrekker republics of the Orange Free State and the South African Republic, known as the Transvaal, were Dutch republics. The Zulu were incorporated from what was Natal, and the English colony there, as well as the Cape Colony, all under English control. All of this was amalgamated in a compromise in 1910 in the Union of South Africa Act, naming the territory South Africa, using English and describing it geographically, which is colloquially known as South Africa by many people at the time. It was a compromise to bring reconciliation between the Boers and the English. So changing the name to Azania is dumb. It's racist. It's an attempt to undermine reality. First off, nobody says they're going to Tshwane. No foreign diplomats go to Tshwane. They go to Pretoria. Nobody goes down Francis Bard Boulevard. People drive on Schoeman, even though it was named Francis Bard years ago. Most people don't call it Makanda. They call it Grahamstown. Most people don't call it Umbombela. Most people call it Nelspruit. And those things won't change. Changing the name will simply cause chaos. It's dumb. There are starving people in South Africa. There are victims of gender-based violence in South Africa. There's rampant crime, taxi wars, construction mafia, deficit spending, racism, farm murders, outright bigotry and racism against minorities. These are issues that South Africa must address, not changing the name of the country. It's stupid. Awkward Leon, how's it going? Yeah, Erica says, it's unbelievable criticism Chris had to put up with over the years. Chris, an awesome person, privileged to call him friend. Please replace your hatred with love. Well, thank you for that. Gods and Generals is a good movie. Yep. Yep, we're still in Pretoria. Yep. Why don't they rather fix the country? Exactly. Well, I have a news story today talking about the amount of dams and the amount of water that was built by the National Party over 30 years, and we'll compare it to what the ANC's done. It won't shock you, but it'll depress you. Sort of makes sense. The name South Africa's cock in the world. Not really. The Dutch, Germans, French worked well together. Then the English came. Well, that's not entirely accurate either, that Retief. We have to be honest about that. The Dutch, the Germans, and the French did not work so well together. They got along, they knocked boots and reproduced and intermarried, absolutely. And wound up speaking what became Afrikaans, but they didn't get along so well. The burghers who were stationed at the Cape Town colony were told you can only go this far. And then, of course, they ignored the rules and they went this far. And they said you can't go any further, so they went further. And then they put rules on. They said we don't like the rules, so they went further. And they went further and further. And they kept trying to escape the authority of the Dutch, not the English, the Dutch. So let's get the history straight. They didn't get along so well. They didn't like being ruled. They liked their independence. They didn't like being told what to do or how to live their lives or how to worship or who to associate with or who to stick their schwang in. So they kept moving away. And that's the history. Frustrated with governance moving away. That's what they did. And eventually, in the 1830s, they said, enough of this. We're out of here. And they went north and east and north again. So that's the true history. So they didn't get along so well. Let's be honest about that. If you change the name, it will not be fixed for years to come. The name will eventually be part of the legacy of government. Yep. I think the bugger off bunny will be new president of South Africa. What shooting incident? The original name was Mono Tomtapa. That's just made up bullshit. That's just made up bullshit. There's no such entity that ever existed. Didn't exist. There was never an entity known as South Africa or any other name in the territory that it comprises South Africa today. You're just fictionally making up bullshit. Total nonsense. No such thing, Codebreaker. No such thing. Now, some people may have identified a portion of South Africa by that name, but South Africa as a state was never known by anything before the name South Africa applied to it. It's simple as that. There was no such thing. Now, you want to talk about Great Zimbabwe? It existed. It had a name. Yeah, well, the Portuguese can name a piece of ground they know nothing about with a name, but that doesn't mean that's the name for South Africa. Did the people in South Africa know that that was the name? Did they live by that? Did they tell someone, welcome to Monotopia? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Insania. There you go. Insania, not Azania. Insania. That's brilliant. Talking about Dems, have you read the book I give you, sir? I have not. I haven't read any of those books that I came back from South Africa with. I've been very busy. In fact, I pulled out a book last night from, drawing a blank. Victor Davis Hanson, his latest book. I've been trying to read that. I've had it in the basement. I had to dig it out and bring it out. Anyway, so yeah. The only claim to fame is Natal. Already living in Sanya. Yep. Yeah, so we can disagree on that one, Codebreaker. But you can't say that the territory of South Africa is known as that. The Portuguese may have slapped something on the map, but that doesn't mean that's what the place was known as. A lot of people have names for themselves that just mean the people. But people hear the word in that language and then think that's the name of the group of people, and that's how they get identified later on. All right, let's get to the news, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get to the news. I've been busy with dealing with that nonsense earlier. I had intended to do a couple videos this morning. So, Azani was the name of parts of East Africa and specifically referred to the land of the blacks. Well, East Africa is not Southern Africa. Yeah. Anyway, let's get to it. The news. Wow, Trump's tariffs are about to bite, and they're going to bite hard for countries that failed to negotiate in good faith, like South Africa. The global credit outlook darkens as the end of Trump's tariffs pause looms. U.S. President Donald Trump expected to formally end the current hiatus on July 9th. Moody's Ratings and Fitch Ratings have both issued stark warnings about deteriorating global credit conditions, citing escalating trade tensions, policy uncertainty, and geopolitical risk as major threats to economic stability in 2025. This comes ahead of July 9th when President Trump is expected to formally lift the current pause on tariffs imposed on imports, potentially reigniting a global trade war. Well, we shall see. Former South African Deputy President, not President, but Deputy President David Mabuza has died. Former Deputy President David Mabuza has died. Times Live understands Mabuza died today, but the details of his death have not been published. He died at a hospital in Sandton after an elongated illness. Elongated? Yeah, extended, I think is the word you want. Elongated illness? What kind of English is this? So what is elongated? Is that like his member getting longer or his arm being longer? Elongated? No, it's extended. Extended illness. My goodness. It's understood that President Ramaphosa has been alerted by the family and expected to make an announcement. He was deputy president of South Africa from 2018 until 2023 when Paul Mashatile took over. He's been sick, so he's in hospital, and when he died, his wife was still in Mpumalanga, so she was notified and had to travel to his side. So, passing of David Mabuza. It's just arrogance. The GNU fractures deepen as DA moves IRC coalition allies. I find it comical what we're going to talk about. That's the subject of my video a little bit later on, which I'll be producing. The nonsense going on with the DA's blue jellyfish ultimatum, which they backed down from, to President Ramaphosa. Now, I'm going to mention this because when I did the live of the press conference, I was highly critical of a very disappointing press conference. And then I did a video analyzing that, and I came in for a lot of abuse from not difference of opinion, which is fine, but a lot of abuse, name calling and stupid comments from stupid people on my video, including some of it racist against me, which is funny because I'm attacking the so-called white party. Why would you attack me for being a racist, dumbasses? But yeah, so I came in for a lot of abuse, and that's fine. But now all of the commentators in South Africa and all of the opposition parties are saying the same things I said. Now they're all saying it. In fact, Justice Malala is actually calling them the blue jellyfish. Now, I was accused of being anti-DA. I'm not anti-DA. I've never been anti-DA. I just don't tolerate fools, and I don't tolerate nonsense, and I expose fraud, and I expose dishonesty. And that's what I've done. So it's so funny that I guess when you're out in front at the tip of the spear leading the way, analyzing things, you become the target. None of these people are being attacked, to my knowledge, on social media, in the media, but I was attacked. Yes, they are copycats now. Yep. It's just arrogance. Yeah, okay, well, the DA is facing widespread criticism for its oppositional theatrics within the GNU, including walking out of the national dialogue. Leaders like Brett Herron, when did Brett Herron become a leader? And Ganef Hendricks accused the DA of acting irresponsibly, avoiding established structures for dispute resolution, and undermining the collaborative spirit of the GNU. Okay, first off, that's just bullshit. Brett Herron from the Good for Nothing Party And Hanif Hendricks, you're so full of yourselves, you know what you're talking about. And I'm talking to you. That's right. I'm talking to you unashamedly. You're so full of it. Number one, you both know that the ANC does what it wants. There are no collaborative measures. There's no spirit of GNU. They have done exactly what they wanted from the get-go. And all you hangers-on want is your blue light escorts, your MP salaries, your cabinet minister position perks, and the attention that you don't deserve because your parties can't get two people together to agree on one thing. You're insignificant parties, and you're getting attention in the press as if you think that's going to do something for you other than ensure that you keep a job in Parliament to suckle from the teat of the South African taxpayer. The ANC does not respect any of the structures. Blaming the DA for that is nonsense. That's dishonest. It's disingenuous, and you both know it. Shame on you. Shame on you. Justice Malala calling the Democratic Alliance the blue jellyfish. This is going to stick. No pun intended. This one's going to stick, folks. The blue jellyfish. The DA's blustering brinkmanship, which always ends in a climb down, true, achieves nothing but heightened political instability. Justice Malala is all over this one. The fragile year-old GNU has entered a new and dangerous phase. The main players, supposedly the adults in the room, are indulging in a risky game of tit for tat. One party acts irrationally, the other reacts angrily, and the foundations GNU shake. It means the probability of the coalition government collapsing any day with no guarantee of what the future looks like is high. Yes. The blue jellyfish. The blue jellyfish. Oh, I'm sorry. Justice Malala hit that one out of the park. You know, he just got 5 runs on that one, man, using cricket terminology. Here comes the bowler. There's the ball. Justice Malala knocks it out of the park. Wow, the blue jellyfish. Man, that one's going to stick. That's going to stick, folks. That's going to stick like white on rice. The blue jellyfish. Oh, there you go. That's my next song. The blue jellyfish. Oh, that man, I will definitely call a DA hater if I do that. The blue jellyfish. I'll definitely be called a hater if I do that. Oh, should I do it? Should I make a blue jellyfish song? Oh, dear God, Johann Jacobs. Did you listen to what I said? You listen to what I said? They didn't leave because the British. They kept expanding. You need to do a little research. History is your subject. Well, I'm a historian. I have degrees in history. I'm a published author. I'm not disputing you, but I don't have it wrong. I don't have it wrong. They chafed at the governorship, the rule of the Dutch East India Company, and they ignored its precipices and its rules. And that's a fact. The documents are there. They're in the archives. Well, the ones that didn't burn at UCT during the fire. But yeah, they're there, man. Come on. Why can't you just admit the truth? They've always been independent-minded, and there's nothing wrong with that. They always chafed at being governed. Yep. Anyway. Go for it. Tibet says the VOC was great. Yeah, for the shareholders of the Dutch East India Company, it brought them lots of wealth for a couple centuries. But in the end, it wasn't so great. Here comes the bugger off jellyfish. Does it mean they're transparent because they don't have a backbone? Well, Musi Maimani jumps into the fray, another bum-hurt former DA member. Musi Maimani says in an op-ed in News 24, they're shooting themselves in the foot. DA's risky gamble against Ramaphosa. All right. As the government of national unity stumbles from mishap to misfortune, the latest impasse appears to be the fragile government's most significant stress test. The second largest coalition partner, the DA, has threatened to table a motion of no confidence. The stated reason is ostensibly the president's removal of DA Minister of Trade, Deputy Minister of Trade, Andrew Whitfield. Yeah, DA party leader Steve Nelson's lengthy lamentation in media conference on Saturday made this painfully clear. Yeah, it did. It was lengthy. It was painful. So Whitgate continues. But if the DA was genuinely concerned, had principles about corruption, accused people being appointed as ministers and deputy ministers in the government of national unity, why didn't they stand on principle in July of 2024? Why didn't they stand on principle in December of 2024? March of 2025. Only after Andrew Whitfield is fired because he's uncovering corruption do they take offense. They have no principles. They have no morals and standards here. If they did, they would have stood for it and they wouldn't have made us think about it back then. We'd have no government. But the argument from the Democratic Alliance is always, well, we got to preserve jobs. What jobs? South Africa has 95,000 less formal jobs this year than it had last year. The economy is in free fall, growing at less than 1% GDP per annum. And when the 31% tariffs kick in on July 9th, things are going to go from bad to worse in South Africa. So what principle are they standing on here? Sorry, Musi, you're right in some respects, but not entirely. Well, here's the thing. These parties that are criticizing the DA because they're not supporting the ANC and its GNU are the same parties that just voted against the budget for the education minister. Hypocrisy, thy name is GNU. DA and opposition parties reject higher education minister Nkabani's budget. It's time for President Ramaphosa to fire Minister Nkabani and clean up the ANC's criminal network from the heart of Parliament, said the DA's Janine Adrianse in response to the budget. Higher Education Minister Nobulo Nkabani on Tuesday accused the DA, MK, and EFF of rejecting the transformation of post-school education and training sector in South Africa. She also accused them of being misogynist, racist, and anti-transformation. Well, she's full of it. Hey, folks, hold on. We've got some good news here. We've got some good news. It's hard. We look very difficult. Good news, South Africa. We'll have some good news here. Some very good news. Take-A-Lot is planning to hire 18,000 people. Now, that's some good news. I don't know what kind of jobs they are, but 18,000. Many of them apparently from the former South African post office. Take-A-Lot to hire 18,000 people, including retrenched post office workers. That's good news. Wow. Yay. Department of Communications and Digital Technology says it is an agreement with online retailer Take-A-Lot that will see the e-commerce giant take on retrenched post office staff. But I do have some bad news. You can't get a job if you're white, colored, or Indian. It's only for blacks. I just made that up. That's just pure fiction. Who knows? Who knows? Speaking to the Parliamentary Committee on Communications, Director General Nongbela Jordan Dayani said the agreement is part of the department's efforts to create jobs in the country. They're trying to create jobs. We got a Take-A-Lot agreement in place. Actually, they don't. Take-A-Lot disagreed, said there is no agreement in place. The Take-A-Lot group confirmed that they're engaged in ongoing discussions, but there is no agreement. There's no agreement that's been reached. So once again, the South African government lies about something, just like the education minister lied about the composition of the board by appointing an attorney who knew nothing about it and disparaging and destroying his reputation. Yes, and you're correct. Take-A-Lot went from financial distress to hiring 18,000 people very quick with Amazon here. Interesting. Well, they haven't hired anybody. That's what they say they're doing. Sometimes companies announce things with a total BS just to generate good publicity, and hopefully people drive attention to their site and get them business. Donald Trump, according to the Freedom Front Plus, wants the ANC to denounce Kill the Boer. Well, you don't need the Freedom Front Plus to tell you that. I told you that when Trump came in office. The party visited the U.S. recently with the intention of engaging in terms of an Afrikaner perspective on relations. Among the conditions were for the ANC to denounce Kill the Boer song and prioritize the fight against farm murders. Not going to happen. Not going to happen, unfortunately. Well, ladies and gentlemen, here's the fascinating story. South Africa built 1,583% more dam capacity in the 30 years under the National Party than 30 years under the ANC. Does that surprise you? Nah, it shouldn't surprise you. Doesn't surprise me either. Louis L'Amour. Wow, we have a famous author in the chat. Between 1964 and 1994, the government constructed 14 new dams that can store 200 million cubic meters of water. Between 1994 and 2024, it built only 2. South Africa is facing severe water problems due to lack of infrastructure maintenance and a failure to invest in additional infrastructure. Johannesburg faces a severe water crisis due to aging infrastructure, insufficient investment in maintenance and upgrades, and high levels of water losses. Many smaller towns across South Africa, such as Lichtenburg and colonial, experience water outages that can last for days. Well, a recent report revealed the government had added only 1.7 million megaliters of dam capacity over the past 29 years, compared to 22 million from 64 to 93. And the population grew from 44 million to 65 million. Actually, it was lower than that. It was 34 million. But anyway, yeah, wow. There you go. South Africa's official data about its dams paints a grim picture. The country has significantly slowed its investment in large dams. Why? Because the ANC's been busy stealing. But it's Jan van Riebeck's fault. It's white people's fault. It's their inability to transformation. White people resisting transformation is why there's no dams. Don't you know that? Jan van Riebeck, Hendrik Verwoerd, John Forster. And of course, many, many evil white people are the reason why the ANC is not building dams. That's why. You guys know that, right? I mean, because they are opposed to transformation. Transformation means no money for infrastructure, maintenance money stolen, patronage hires, incompetent, unqualified people put in positions to make decisions at SAA, at Airports Company South Africa, Transnet, Eskom. That's what transformation means. It's racism on steroids. It's patronage on steroids. It's incompetence and wholesale kleptocracy on steroids. That's transformation. South Africa is being transformed from a functioning country into a third world cesspool. That's your transformation, ladies and gentlemen. Are you anti-transformation? I am. I'm paying to see South Africa transformed into a cesspool. Yep. The public protector has cleared the cat in the hat. Beckett Seeley, the former police minister, has been cleared for misuse of a helicopter. He's looking a little thin these days, isn't he? Public protector Koleka Kakeka has cleared former police minister Beckett Seeley of accusations of chartering on South African Police Service helicopter to attend the ANC's election manifesto. Well, he did. The DA complained about it after he was seen arriving in a SAPS helicopter. Andrew Whitfield, the DA's then shadow minister, accused Seeley of using the official aircraft as his taxi. Whitfield also rejected Beckett Seeley and SAPS over averment that the former minister's use of the helicopter was in line with his constitutional responsibility as Minister of Police. It wasn't. It's a personal use of government resources, taxpayer resources, for political means. It was criminal. It's illegitimate. And I don't care whether the corrupt public ANC protector charges him or not. It's a crime, as was the actions of Mapisa Naola in 2020 when she stole a South African Air Force aircraft and misused government resources to take her Tubalard ANC caters to Zimbabwe, unauthorized by the president. Yeah, more corruption right there. Yeah, the cat in the hat. Also, while we're at it, let's talk about the misuse of using SAPS helicopters to fly Julius Tubalard Malema to Senegal in 2020. Remember that? Julius showed up in Senegal, and his argument was, well, I'm on the Judicial Services Commission, so I need to oversee this trial. No, you don't. No, you don't. It was a misuse of resources flying Julius Malema to Senegal on a government helicopter. A member of parliament is not entitled to the use of SAPS helicopters or SENDEF helicopters. No. So the misuse and abuse of government resources and taxpayer funds is rampant in South Africa, and it's all fraud, and it should be exposed. Unexplained billions missing from South Africa's oldest state institution, the post office. I think that image is fantastic. Look at that faded sign on that post mailbox. Former Post Office Chief Executive Officer Mark Barnes said the state-owned company should prioritize investigating its inexplicable disappearance of billions of rand from the post office finances. Speaking at Cape Talk about the turnaround plan, he said the agency should first determine where the losses are due to systemic problems with corruption. The post office, when I had it, had about 5.2 billion net asset value, he says. Since then, what has reported in the last month or so has gone to 1 billion in asset value, and they've written off 7.4 billion rand in debt. And there are any number of billions unexplained. Get that understood first before you go forward. Yep. You know, the post office received 2.4 billion bailout, and then another injection of 3.8 billion bailout, another 3 billion bailout. Where is all this money going? Into the pockets of corrupt caters, no doubt. Well, a Hawks investigator was nearly assassinated, another one, after the police guy was assassinated last year. Gee, many crickets. The investigating officer looking into the killing of Hawks detective Franz Matiba was almost eliminated himself. He was allegedly ambushed near the Randburg Magistrates Court, but evaded harm after firing a warning shot. Crime intelligence intercepted threats, warning investigators assigned to the case they could face death. Now, this is the case involving 13 South African National Defense Force Special Forces soldiers who were charged in Matiba's murder. They've been charged with kidnapping, presumed deaths of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria's South African-based leader Abdallah Abdagida and his bodyguard. And then they're accused of murdering a Hawks officer. What kind of military does South Africa have that its soldiers are part of organized crime syndicates that murder public officials? Margaret Arnolds is once again the Joburg Speaker. Newly elected Speaker of the City of Johannesburg, Margaret Arnolds has pledged a renewed commitment to efficient governance and accountability during her second term at the helm of the council. I've learned lessons, a lot of lessons in both finance and legislation. I think that I might not make the same mistakes I made before. Wow. So we brought someone incompetent back because maybe she's learned from her mistakes the first time. The world's largest man-made forest doesn't need someone who can't see the forest through the trees. Unbelievable. Well, in neighboring Namibia, B2 Gold's Ochikoto project growing maize. They're searching for gold, and they decided to grow maize. A gold mine in northern Namibia is putting its money where hungry mouths are, contributing to the country's food security, which is very insecure. 5 years after the first gold was poured in 2014, the Canadian-owned B2 Gold Ochikoto mine discovered the land was also suitable for agriculture. It began planning in 2019, naming it the Erdshof Agricultural Project after the original farm that was there. This year, it's expected to have a harvest of close to 2,000 tons of white maize. Now, Namibia imports maize during the past season, or this season, reached 340,000 tons, mostly white maize for human consumption and a bit yellow for stock feed. Severe drought has been driving the imports, which cost Namibia 564 million Namibian dollars. 61% of that comes from South Africa. Construction on an open pit and underground mine began in 2013 when it discovered that gold was not the only wealth in the ground. It hired Zimbabwean farmer Jeremy Ford as an agronomic consultant who moved to Namibia because of land uncertainty in his homeland. Let's see. So Namibia was sitting on a gold mine. No Namibians had the gumption, the fortitude, the ability, the capital, the energy, the drive to mine the gold on a former farm. So it took a Canadian company and white Canadians to come in and put their money into it. And then they had to hire a white Zimbabwean to come there to actually farm to feed Namibians. I'm sorry. What was this about not needing white people in Africa? I must have missed anyway, stupid people. Well, he's head of a mafia state. That's what he said. And now he's going to jail. Zimbabwe's repression of free speech continues. Zimbabwe journalist arrested for allegedly insulting President Mnangagwa. Zimbabwean journalist been arrested for insulting him. The journalist is accused of penning a satirical piece under a pseudonym that took aim at the Zimbabwean president. The article described Mnangagwa as the head of a mafia state who is leading SADC, a club of useless dictators. Wow. Zaba, the editor of the local independent newspaper, the Zimbabwe Independent, appeared in the Harare Magistrates Court following her arrest the day before. She's been charged with insulting and undermining the authority of the president. Wow, what a serious offense. Insulting and undermining the authority of the president. How is that a crime? Only in a fascist dictatorship state could such a thing be considered a crime. If that were a crime, almost the entire media would be locked up in America for its insults to President Trump. The International Monetary Fund is giving more handouts to those evil white people from Washington, doing it again, this time $262 million to the DRC. Wow. International Monetary Fund said yesterday that it completed its first review of its extended credit facility for the DRC, unlocking an immediate disbursement of $261 million, or 4.58 billion rand. Those evil white people helping those black people again. Well, children are dying in South Sudan, folks. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. Children are dying in South. Children have been dying for eons in South Sudan, long before America existed 249 years ago. Long before USAID was created in 1961, and handouts allowed people in South Sudan to become beggars and live off the teeth of the American taxpayer. But children are dying, according to the French press agency, published by Cockprot 24. Well, let's blame the Americans for the failure of Sudanese to govern themselves. It's our fault. Yes. USAID cuts have significantly reduced funding, leading to severe consequences like malnutrition and halted aid in South Sudan. South Sudan faces cholera outbreaks, acute malnutrition among refugees, and a lack of essential supplies amid funding shortfalls. I'm sorry, where is the African Union? Where is the United Nations? Where is the European Union? Why is it my responsibility as an American taxpayer to take care of the failures of South Sudan? We've been doing that for years. Well, thank you, Cockprot24, for sharing that guilt-laden story, which brings no guilt to my heart. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy says the mega dam gird on the Nile is now complete. Wow. One of the biggest projects on earth. Sudan and Egypt are concerned about its effect on their water supply, but Abiy says the dam will benefit them all. It's been a major point of contention between them. There he is, pseudo-dressed in kind of, a desert warrior outfit there. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said the multi-billion-dollar mega dam on the Blue Nile, which has caused deep consternation to downstream neighbors Egypt and Sudan over its effect on their water supply, is complete and will be officially inaugurated in September. So there you go. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam gird is now complete, and we're preparing for its official inauguration. There will be those who believe it should be disrupted before that moment. We reaffirm our commitment the dam will be put into operation. Launched in 2011 for $4 billion, considered Africa's largest hydroelectric project, stretching 1.8 kilometers wide and 145 meters high. Ethiopia says the dam located in the Blue Nile, a major tributary to the Nile, is vital for its electrification program. And they are 100% correct. They need electricity. 7 killed in riots in Togo. Oh boy, Africa is so calm and peaceful. 7 people killed in anti-government protests in Togo last week, according to human rights activists. The protest calling for the resignation of longtime leader Faure Gnassingbé amid what critics describe as a cost of living crisis. A joint statement by 12 Togolese civil society and human rights groups also accused security forces of carrying out arbitrary arrests, beating civilians with batons and ropes, and stealing and destroying private property. Well, that's not good. Mali's army says they killed 80 militants after coordinated attacks on their post. Mali's armed forces have killed 80 militants in response to a series of simultaneous and coordinated attacks on military posts across the country, according to a video statement released by the army on Tuesday. The enemy suffered significant losses in every location where they were engaged with the security and defense forces, the army spokesperson said. Interesting. Again, peace breaking out all over Africa. The only place peace is breaking out in Africa is where the United States is engaged, in the Congo, of all places. Well, Dangote, Nigeria's billionaire, trumpets Donald Trump's approach to Africa, while the intellectuals in Africa and the black supremacists are whining about Trump. Dangote is praising him, trumpeting a path to prosperity for Africa. Nigerian billionaire Aliko Dangote has given his support to U.S. President Donald Trump's approach to trade, saying that African leaders should become proactive in addressing their trade imbalances with other regions. Speaking at the African Export-Import Bank annual meeting in Abuja, the Dangote Group president and CEO said Trump's approach to trade and protectionism was informed by his mission to prevent trade imbalances such as export dumping, which have rocked African economies for decades. When Trump said, "Make America Great," he was trying to create jobs. Some people may not agree with him, but I fully agree with him because I've been through that route. When you try to go into new industries and export destinations, say open up your market, it's like opening your windows before you go to bed. You won't be able to have a good sleep because you will be disturbed by mosquitoes. Dangote basically saying that the Chinese are mosquitoes. 5 people dead, 29 missing after a ferry collapsed near Bali. The ship was carrying 65 people when it sank on its way to the Indonesian resort island, a popular tourist destination, and the search was given up by Indonesian authorities. The ferry departed shortly before 11 p.m. on Wednesday from a port on Java, carrying 53 passengers, 12 crew members. The journey to Bali typically takes less than an hour, but the crew sent a distress call at 11:20, and the ferry sank 15 minutes later. The bodies of 5 Indonesians have been recovered as of Thursday morning, according to Search and Rescue Agency. 31 people have been rescued from the water as 9 boats, a helicopter, and local fishermen searched the waves taller than 6 feet. So it got swamped by the waves. That's not good. That's not good. Is there a no time limit, Congressman talking in the House? No. No, there is no time limit. It's called filibustering. There's no time limit. No, we're not like parliamentary systems where you get 3 minutes to respond. You can talk as long as you want. Ukraine summons the U.S. envoy over the suspension of arms. So we don't give them weapons, and they demand that our ambassador equivalent show up to be dressed down. Ukraine called acting U.S. envoy to its foreign ministry on Wednesday after Washington suspended some deliveries of ammunition and missiles. According to a statement from the Ukrainian government, Ukrainian Deputy Foreign Minister Marina Betsa met with Deputy Chief of Mission at the U.S. Embassy in Kiev, John Ginkel, where she thanked him for American support. However, she cautioned that cutting off aid, particularly air defense, would encourage Russia to step up its attacks. So we got summoned. We got a dressing down because we're not giving you money. You see how the Ukrainians are ungrateful bastards they are? They dress down our diplomats when we don't give them things that they want. Well, it was a tough day, says Rachel Reeves, after her tears in Parliament. Rachel Reeves has said that she had a tough day and had been clearly upset as she gave her first interview since crying in the House of Commons on Wednesday. There's no crying in baseball. She was speaking after making a surprise appearance alongside Sir Keir Starmer to unveil the government's 10-year plan for the national health system. Government borrowing costs initially rose following Reeves' tearful appearance at Prime Minister's questions. There she is. She's so upset that people don't like her budget. There's no crying in baseball. There's no crying in Parliament either. The European Union opens the door to international carbon credits. Here we go with this scam. Carbon credits will be verifiable, certifiable, and additional, says EU Climate Commissioner Whoopi Hoekstra. He said Whoopi. Whoopi. The hell kind of name is that, man? Sorry. The European Commission has proposed EU climate target for 2040 that will allow countries to use international carbon credits. So they can still pollute, they just pay someone else for the pollution. In a published fact sheet, the EU discussed the possibility of limited use of high-quality international carbon credits starting in 2036. This is one of the biggest scams going. Folks, I know it's a scam. I was in Liberia. A Canadian company cut down rubber trees that weren't producing sap anymore, chopped them up, burned them in incinerators to generate electricity, releasing carbon. They produced electricity, which they made money for, selling it to Liberians. But they were giving carbon credits because they planted new trees, which absorbed less carbon than the living, healthy trees that were no longer producing sap. So they double dipped. The German electrical company, RWE, purchased the carbon credits from the Canadian company for planting trees in Liberia when they were actually removing trees. And it was just a wash. But in the short term, it was worse because the seedlings couldn't absorb anywhere near as much carbon as the existing trees were absorbing when they were cut down. It's all a scam. It's all a scam. Wow. Well, the site of the Jonestown massacre, Guyana Grape, Jim Jones and his psychopathic cult in Guyana has become a tourist attraction, which is odd because there's nothing left of it. The site of the Jonestown massacre opens to tourists. Some ask why. Both American survivors of the mass suicide and murder and Guyanese have criticized the tour, but defenders say the site offers important lessons. The People's Temple. Nearly 50 years after the mass murder-suicide in the settlement known as Jonestown, all that remains in the remote Guyanese jungle is a small clearing. The wood and zinc structures that once housed 1,000 members of the People's Temple, the religious group founded by Jim Jones, have long ago been scavenged or vanished beneath vines. A single plaque installed in 2009 marks the site of one of history's deadliest cult tragedies where more than 900 people died on November 18, 1978, after Mr. Jones ordered his followers to commit suicide, an event that shocked the world. After decades of hesitation over how to handle Jonestown's legacy, many Guineas see as a stain on their small South American nation. A new tour allows visitors to confront the traumatic event. The Jonestown Memorial Tour, operated by a Guyanese company called Wanderlust Adventures, offers a $750 trip that includes a flight from the capital, Georgetown, a bumpy hour-long ride, and a night in the nearby mining town of Port Kaituma. The tour has provoked backlash from Guyanese eager to shed any association with Jonestown, named for Mr. Jones, and from whose survivors say commodifying what happened is lurid. I agree. It is. These are tourists. One survivor, John Cobb, called it a money grab to capitalize on a tragedy. He happened to be in the Guyanese capital during the mass deaths, but 11 relatives, including his mother and 5 siblings, died. Man, there he is, Jim Jones and his wife, wackadoodles. And those are the bodies. I'm not going to skip right over that. Yep, mass grab. Remember that. I'll never forget that. I was a kid when that happened. Sick people. They murdered a congressman from California who went out there to investigate what was going on. They shot him dead at the airport, the airstrip. Trump will host 5 African leaders to discuss commercial opportunities. Leaders from Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal will be visiting the White House on July 9th. Leaders from Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal will be visiting the White House to discuss trade with Donald Trump on July 9th. But not from South Africa. Leaders from Gabon, Guinea-Bissau, Liberia, Mauritania, and Senegal, but not from South Africa. And I think that says all you need to know, folks. Well, Trump's mega bill, the big beautiful bill, is set for a final House vote as Republican holdouts have relented. Trump pushed Republicans to pass a bill saying this should be an easy yes vote. House of Representatives was headed towards a final vote Thursday to pass President Trump's sprawling tax and spending bill after party leaders worked through resistance from a handful of rank-and-file members. The expected passage by the House later Thursday means Congress would get the bill to Trump's desk by a self-imposed July 4th deadline. Wow. We are at the precipice of a new golden age in America, says House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced of that, Steve. Sorry. Well, jobs holding steady. Employers added 147,000 jobs in June, and the unemployment rate ticked down 4.1%, suggesting that tariffs, interest rates, and other headwinds are not yet causing employers to pull back. So the fake news from the media claiming that America is in decline, that things are bad, that the economy is it's nonsense. Inflation is tamed, it appears. Jobs continue to grow. GDP continues to grow, despite the Fed's artificially high interest rates, despite the tariffs, despite all the brouhaha caused by Trump. The economy is growing. Interesting. By the way, South Africa lost 95,000 jobs from a year ago. So you're minus 94,000 formal jobs. In June alone, the United States added 147,000 jobs in a single month. And we've got 13 million vacancies. Why are people interested in the refugee program questioning whether there's jobs here? Will I be able to get a job? Are you serious? Crack open a book, open Google, read a newspaper. Will I be able to find a job? My goodness. 4% unemployment is essentially full employment. I don't know why people are even questioning that stuff. It's silly, to say the least. Well, the Supreme Court has agreed to hear a transgender case. This is interesting. The court announced it would hear challenge to state laws barring transgender athletes from girls and women's sports. Supreme Court announced on Thursday that it would hear 2 cases testing the constitutionality of state laws that bar transgender athletes from girls and women's sports teams. The justice's decision to hear the dispute signals that the court is willing to delve back into the fraught battle over transgender rights. In June, the court split along ideological lines, upheld a Tennessee law that bans some medical treatments for transgender youth. Well, there you go. There you go, folks. There you go. We'll see what the court decides. Supreme Court is also reviewing a local law barring preaching in public spaces. How can you do that? It's public space. How can you bar someone? You sound like the United Kingdom, where you don't have free speech. And when they arrest Christians for preaching, the gospel at Hyde Park, yet let thousands of Muslims bow down and pray on the grounds of the Church of England. Something's wrong with the United Kingdom. Federal Appeals Court previously rejected Gabriel Oliver's challenge to a brand new Mississippi law. Supreme Court on July 3rd decided to reconsider an evangelist stalled challenge for a protest at a Mississippi city. The court's new decision in Oliver versus City of Brandon took the form of an unsigned order. No justice dissented. The court did not explain its decision. The petitioner, Gabriel Oliver, is a Christian who feels called to share the gospel with his fellow citizens. He was arrested after publicly prophesizing and then fined for being convicted of violating an ordinance. He sued the city under 42 U.S. Code 42, Section 1983, a federal law that allows individuals to sue governments for alleged civil rights violations. He sought a court declaration that the ordinance ran afoul of the First and 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and asked for an injunction blocking its enforcement. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the 5th District ruled against him, holding that his conviction for violating the ordinance prevented him from bringing his lawsuit. How is that possible? So what the appeals court said is that he was convicted of an offense that's not a legitimate offense, and therefore he can't sue. That's nonsense. He has standing. Oliver asked the Supreme Court to look at the case, and they are now going to look at it. Thank you. Thank goodness we have a high court. Trump's tariffs and the retail industry is looking at how they're going to overcome it. Some in the retail industry are relieved that tariffs to Vietnamese imports could be 20% instead of the previously proposed 46%. But the duties are expected to lead to higher prices, which could chill consumer spending. Vietnam has the retail industry's backup plan after tariffs on China, because transshipment is taking place there. The Chinese are making this stuff in Vietnam and undermining our retail industry back here in America, an apparel industry. I guess Trump needs positive news, the third executive said. I think things are going to evolve. Let's see if this is definitive. Well, Trump is looking for a good, fair deal for the United States, and all trade restrictions are now removed. Harvard University suffering $1 billion loss. Good. Racist, bigots, and anti-Semites, anti-white, anti-Christian, anti-male scumbags at Harvard University's so-called Ivy League institution of indoctrination are suffering a $1 billion budget shortfall. I hope they collapse. The nation's oldest educational institution should go through some suffering. Harvard University would face a budget shortfall of $1 billion a year if President Trump follows through on all his plans and threats spanning research funding, tax policy, student enrollment. The grim math helps explain why Harvard has taken steps toward negotiating with the administration after months of defiance. The journal's estimate based on publicly available data is a worst-case scenario in which Harvard loses all federal research funding, federal student aid, and its ability to enroll international students, and Congress hikes its annual endowment tax to 8%. A sustained shortfall of that magnitude would severely strain Harvard's ability to manage its $6.4 billion annual operating budget. Though Harvard has a $53 billion endowment, more than 80% of the money is subject to donor restrictions, meaning that it can't be touched to patch budget gaps without inviting lawsuits. They've got enough money to keep going for a while, but eventually they're going to have to make substantial cuts, said Robert Kelshin, professor at the University of Tennessee, who studies education finance. You would change the future of the institution. Good. The future of Harvard should be changed. If we're going to play games, then 75% of the students at Harvard should be white, 12% black, 3% Asian. There you go. Want to play these little games? We'll play with you. Welcome back to the program, ladies and gentlemen. It is Thursday, the 3rd of July, the day before our Independence Day, which is tomorrow. Yep. Tomorrow. Afrikaans saying, Geword aan niks. Okay. Well, today is the last day of the Battle of Gettysburg, 1 through 3 July 1863. And as I said, I'll consider going down to Gettysburg after this to do a tour of the battlefield. I've done that in the past, but, some people watch it. Not a lot of people are into it. So look for my live streams and video uploads a little bit later on. I'll take a power bank with me to make sure my phone's got plenty of charge. In fact, let's check on it now. Oh, it's low. It needs to be charged. Oh, man, I had no idea it was that low. I thought I charged this earlier. Let's get the phone charged. There we go. 13%. It was nearly dead. Wow. Okay. South African courts are a butthole. Okay. I just heard that David Mabuza passed away. Well, that's Nikki. I see you weren't watching the broadcast. That was one of my lead stories. Yep. He passed away. Information not further coming out. The job opportunities are wonderful for America. I'm not in America, but from what I see and hear, it keeps going. Some people from here works there and are doing really good. We're doing very well, yes. Would love to see that. Okay, says Taylor Made. Gettysburg would be awesome. History is important. Well, Steve, then I'll plan on going down there. Good, as they were used for global elites to enable their ideology. Okay, Ingrid wants to see it too. 300% aliens. What's that? Okay. Harvard is a disgrace. Yep. Watch hilarious clip from Katie Hopkins reference Rachel's hair by Lego Reese. I haven't seen that. May, South Africa, I've checked. Only jobs for me is car guarding. Yep, that's why I applied for it. Opportunity for a better future. Our last fireworks show, I ended up with 3 cats and 2 dogs. People don't train them. Mine are always relaxed. Huh? They even cracked down at Speaker's Corner in London. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Hyde Park, Alan. That's Hyde Park, Speaker's Corner. Yeah, that's where they crack down. You're allowed to have free speech there. I've been to London and listened to wackadoodles get up on their soapbox and say all kinds of things over the years. But if you preach Christianity, they remove you. But they let Muslims desecrate Christian holy ground by standing in front of Church of England churches and praying on their knees. It's sick. Also looked today and found 50 pages full of jobs for me. What, in the U.S., Jelly Belly? Every country is in for collapse. It's called the Great Reset, says Neil. Rudolph says, be worse off than during the COVID scam. They do want South Africa to collapse, says Virtual Western Cape. The Great Reset towards communist state where everyone is dependent on the state for survival. Talking of jobs, I'm certified driving instructor. Will there be a job in that available? Are you asking Patrick Blair Brown if there's a job for driving instructors in America? Well, of course. Every high school has a driver's education program, but your qualifications probably don't match what you need in the United States. You may have to go through some retraining or certification. But yeah, of course there's jobs. I had a high school teacher, Mr. Safford. Remember, because he was missing part of his index finger. It was chopped off by a lawnmower when he was a kid. He used to tap the dash when I was driving with the left hand. It drove me nuts. Anyway, I want to be a locomotive transgender. Okay, gotcha, Tom. I want to see how people get around charging cars during load shedding. Exactly. What does a filibuster achieve besides wasting time? What it does is it wears people down and people leave, and then they call the vote and there aren't enough people there. So that's what it achieves. It also is grandstanding. Politicians have done it for years. Yep. Capture the carbon to enable a circular economy, a valuable product to establish a product, energy inject into old oil fields. I think they're clever by shifting to China for trade. They're not. In San Francisco and other cities before Guinea, old Jim was proto-DNC approved commie. Talking about Jim Jones. Chris, I kind of love you in red. You look so good in red. Well, thank you, Culinary Pirates. But I'm in blue today wearing a Mano Samoa rugby jersey from the Rugby World Cup. Chat XPT not going up. Anyone else having this problem? No, I don't use Chat GPT. I don't use that. I do use it occasionally for my thumbnails, but I don't use it to ask questions. I'm not an artist, so I give it a concept and adjust it. Leah says, my time is up. Back to your room. Sorry to see that. Sorry to see you go. Real BS shifting a problem is for carbon. Yeah, carbon is nonsense. Anyone else noticing gray hair is coming in quicker from the beginning of this year? No, James? No, I don't notice gray hair is coming in quicker. Need more charcoal to generate power to charge electric cars. It's big money-making racket. Erica, 26 years ago, he would have been 58, but forever 32. Who's that? Steve. Rhodesian Army. Oh. My brother was at a 4th of July 1999 fireworks display when an explosion of fireworks took his life 5 hours later. 3 others perished. Well, that's horrible, Steve. Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear that. I'll just put my Substack up. Piece of this and piece of that. Yep. Colonel Chris, is there no time limit? I already answered that question. All right. What else we got here? By the way, let me check on something very quickly here. Let me see something very quickly. Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So anyway, yeah, folks, tomorrow is the 4th of July. I'll put up some patriotic stuff here. I need to go out and put flags in my yard too before I forget. I need to put them out in my yard. So I got to go do that next. Yeah, 4th of July, put the flags back out. I put 13 flags represent the 13 colonies in the breaks between the concrete along the sidewalk out in the front edge of the yard, and put some others in the front. I don't have a flag hanging in my property because I don't have a pole to put it on. I haven't ever put a pole in my yard. There's no really good spot for it because my yard kind of drops off on the front there, and there's a tree right in the corner where I would have put it, so it can't go there. So I've never put a flag out there. You can't leave a flag up if it's not illuminated at night, and I'm not going to go out and take it down every night. So, yes, Trump haters are lame, Brigitte. I agree. They are lame, 100%. I'm with you 100% on that one. No dispute there. What's going on here? Oh, there we go. Something was just not looking right with my with my chat here, or with my channel. All right, so how are we doing? 551 people currently here. Electrical generation is only as good as distribution infrastructure. Yeah, well, that's a problem. When your infrastructure collapses, you can't spread it around. So sad South Africa cannot get together. Looting, corruption, and no common sense. And poor culture. A culture not based on the future, not looking down the road, not putting seed corn aside for the future. Had a solution for cholera, but yet again, our expertise is useless. Well, clean water is a good solution. Was an intelligence chief under Mugabe and architect, not to be unaware, Mnangagwa, yes. You spelled Mnangagwa's name wrong. Okay. Yeah, the 5th Brigade. 20 to 50,000 people were slaughtered, many of them on their knees with a bullet put in the back of the brain pan, dumped into ditches. People know where the bodies are. That's why Mugabe would never leave office. I know many people, and we've been in the same situation, and the sick part is how many cops are involved in the corruption by taking money from scrap dealers to allow them to stay in business. Yep, 100%. Painted my brass tap black. It looks like plastic now. That's interesting. Why would you paint brass black? Hottest Wholesale says the government once turned a once proud and elite unit and turned it into a criminal third force doing criminal activities. Yep. Colonial Private says we don't need whites, Colonel. We need more BE. Make us nice and docile, happy. Oh, I hate being negative. Damn those evil whites. Oh, my brass post office. What do you guys know about all this brass, man? MK factions used to kill each other in their camps in Tanzania and Angola. Yeah, Quattro. Yep. Cyril Ramaphosa was telling everyone about the 4th Industrial Revolution before the pandemic. Once you study the agenda and the UN Charter, everything will make sense. It's all written down. Alan says, Postal Service, natural progression of technology. They will die. Medium of posting things died long ago. Well, yeah, that's not entirely accurate. There's still a need for packages to be delivered. Still a need for letters to be expressly delivered. People need physical things. That's not going to change. That market's still there. DHL, Federal Express, UPS make billions off of that need. The Postal Service failed to get that model right. Furniture polish called pledge. Lemon scented pledge. When I was a kid in the early 90s, says Klaus, the post office sent me birthday letters for some superheroes on a bicycle. That's kind of cool. Right, I've caught up with everybody in the chat now. Let me go back down the other end and see what I missed while I was doing that. Will ICE give South African refugees any problems and how to handle contact with them And how to handle contact with them correctly. Okay, well, why would ICE bother a South African refugee? Are you an illegal alien? No, so ICE won't bother you. They won't bother you. And if they do, you simply show them your documentation and problem's over. Why would you think ICE would bother them? James, do you realize how many illegals are in this country? How many? They haven't got time to mess with legitimate refugees. I don't take my flagpole down when the lights go off. You don't take your flagpole down, Red John. You take your flag down. Well, okay, Jansa van Rensburg, obviously you tuned in late. I've already covered the big, beautiful bill, and it wasn't that long ago in this broadcast. It's in front of the House and expected to be voted on today. Yeah, ICE has been really cool. Just breathe. I know. Where do people come up with this concept? Why are you worried about ICE? If you've done something wrong, you should be worried about. Why? I don't worry about the police. I don't worry about being pulled over by the police. I'm not speeding. I'm not making illegal turns. I'm not making illegal U-turns. I'm not failing to signal when I turn. Why would I worry about being pulled over by police? I don't worry about the police knocking my door. I don't worry about black helicopters. Wait, what's that? There's no reason to worry about things if you're not doing something wrong. You're welcome for me catching up. You obviously came in late, though. So Still laughing about Falkland. Yeah, the Falkland Islands. Did you guys like that last night to watch the Night Owls? Last night we did a news broadcast and I announced it. South Africans. The problem is that when the Congo went to crap, when Erica was a kid, the Belgians and the others fled. They were able to go to Rhodesia or on to northern Rhodesia or down to South Africa. There's a place for them to go. When Angola and Mozambique fell, the Portuguese went to Namibia and South Africa. When South Africa falls, there's no place for those of European origin to go except the Falkland Islands. And we just did some news coverage last night. Today, in the Falkland Islands, a cruise ship with 1,000 Afrikaners arrived, now outnumbering the population in the city of Stanley here in the Falkland Islands. And they've been a rather curious attraction for the Falklanders. They're wondering what this is all about. They got off the boat with these strange things called Cook Sisters, which look like odd, funny donuts, which the Falklanders are puzzled by. And instead of tea time, these strange Afrikaners were drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes, which confused the Falkland Islanders. The only thing they seem to have in common is an affection for sheep. And as they get to the winter season in Southern Hemisphere, reporting live from Goose Green in the Falkland Islands. Hello, it's Adrian van der Merwe from the Falkland Islands. It's fucking cold here. Ladies and gentlemen, we go now live to the Falkland Islands where a dispute is breaking out between the British population of the Falkland Islands and the recent arrivals from South Africa, the Afrikaners who've gone there. Apparently, some people are arguing who is better on the streets of Stanley, Steve Hofmeyer or Depeche Mode. There's a big argument breaking out in the Falkland Islands. Reporting live from the Falkland Islands, this is Dave McGillicuddy. We're in the Falkland Islands here, where over the past several years, thousands of Afrikaners have come here seeking refuge from the collapsed state of South Africa. Here in the Falkland Islands, they're very disappointed. Apparently, someone has discovered gold near Goose Green. And the Afrikaners are like, fuck, here it goes again. Fuck, the English are coming back. Adele, they didn't ask to interview me. They want my contacts. That's what I said. They want my contacts. They don't want to interview me. Anderson Cooper doesn't want to interview me. They want my contacts. That's all that was about, guys. That's all that was about. In fact, let me look and see if I got a response. I wrote back to them last night, a very lengthy letter. Let me, would you guys be interested in hearing what I had to say? Let me see. Wow, super chat. What's that? Yeah, you're the first one with 14 Rand. Thank you, Merlo. The first super chat. Super chat. Super fly. Super freak. She's a really freaky girl. The kind you don't take home to mother. Well, let me see if I got a response. I don't see anything from them. So, let me see. Ingrid wants to hear what the thing is. Message from the State Department. Okay, that's someone asking me something. Okay. Oh, here it is. He did respond. Okay. Okay, from CNN says, thank you very much for your thoughtful and helpful reply to my initial email. Since sending my note to you, I've been given an unexpected assignment that will keep me completely occupied until sometime next week. When that's done behind me, I'll be able to take proper time to read through your attached response and then get back to you. Apology for the unexpected delay on my end. No, it's okay. That's from Ken Schiffman, from the producer at CNN, sent me that. So Debbie Fox just gave a big super chat. Wow. Why is that showing up on the screen? 350 Rand. Thank you for that, Debbie. Appreciate that. I want your contacts as well, as long as they have been sterilized. Culinary pirates. So funny, so funny. Let me find, I won't read the entire letter, but I'll read you some of my letter, okay? Okay. Come on, where's the, well, I'm all the way down here. That's crazy. There we go. Okay, so this is what I wrote to them. Okay, so, all right. So I asked some questions about this because they want me to help them get some contacts. And I'm happy to do that. So I said, thank you for your email. I've received thousands of messages each day and I only now have a few minutes to respond to your message. I'm intrigued by the subject matter that you intend to cover about the G20 summit in South Africa later this year. I think I'm interested in assisting you. However, I have a few questions. What's the thesis or concept of your documentary? And is it about South Africa today? Is it the economic situation, the refugees, or something different? I said, is it the intent solely to speak with refugees or also to hear from those involved or informed about the program and the outcomes? Each refugee has their own experience. None of them are cognizant of the entire program or its processes. Also, proof of concept cohort of 59 refugees' experiences will and have already differed significantly from the subsequent arrivals for several reasons. I said, I have extensive contacts from all walks of life and income levels across South Africa, including the poor, wealthy, politicians, musicians, and celebrities, and this may be relatively easy for me to coordinate. I said, depending on how CNN goes about this, many folks in South Africa, especially Afrikaners, do not trust CNN. I said, sorry, but we both know this is an issue. I said, that said, I am willing to make some effort to try to help you achieve this. Excuse me. I said, first, I want to be clear. I am not, and I do not play the role of gatekeeper for refugees. After the false, disingenuous, and insulting coverage of the first 59 that occurred with them being doxxed before they were even boarded a plane, the level of reticence is extremely high amongst the refugees. Few have any interest whatsoever in exposing themselves after having their lives turned upside down. No one does that to Somalis, the Congolese, or Sudanese who come over here anonymously. I said they've been played as pawns politically, and it's very unfair. I said I'm not their keeper, nor am I an advocate for the refugees or anyone else, just an honest analyst and observer. So regarding interviews and the refugee context, which I develop, I chalk up that to a few different things. I said I've been honest and almost entirely correct in my coverage and analysis of the program since about 2 hours after Trump announced it on February 7th. While many fabricators sought to undermine, I have been neutral and usually correct. This instilled confidence that made it easier to gain trust. I said I did 18 meet and greets with over 1,400 South Africans in several provinces across South Africa before the first refugees arrived and as the first cohort flew over. And I typically spent 4 to 5 hours answering people's questions. I said I did the first ever interview with Thea, or with the refugee Thea, while they were still in South Africa, contrary to a false BBC claim, and held that interview even after they were docked at Joburg Airport until after I had confirmed their arrival on U.S. soil. This responsible behavior was to protect their safety and also gave me a lot of trust. I said I've been willing to record interviews with identities and locations protected. That's been essential to gain the trust in the aftermath of the nonsense related to doxing. I also said I'm not pestering the refugees to do interviews. CBS, ENCA, the Dutch film crew, and many media outlets hit me up for contact with refugees. I make good faith efforts to connect them with refugees who arrive in USA. But in all cases, except the New York Times, I was unsuccessful. The New York Times, John Elligan article was only possible after I suggested to Thea that I could host the interview on Zoom, record it, and then be there to ensure that nothing was lost in context or from an Afrikaans speaker to English. Thea had said no to the New York Times interview until I made that offer. The interview went well, and the New York Times story was fair and accurate. I said, while that worked for Thea, no one else was willing to do that. I said, I've been covering Africa for decades as an Army officer and reporting on it in public for 5 years. I travel there at least twice annually and am widely recognized because of this level of engagement. So to date, I've interviewed 8 South African refugees on air in 6 states. I'm in contact with a few of the new arrivals in the later batches, none of whom so far has any interest in speaking to the media. I'm also in contact with many dozens in South Africa who are participating in the refugee process at present, doing interviews, medical, and so on. I said the initial swarm is dying down, that my coverage to date, my track record protecting folks will make it easier to get South Africans to go on camera going forward. I think we can get the sort of folks you desire for the project, but I can't guarantee they'll agree on their own. I said, I'll begin asking my audience if there's any interest in being part of such a documentary and give you feedback in a few days. I'm not certain this will go over well, but I'm confident I can get some folks for your documentary. I said, I presume CNN intends to travel to meet folks in person to conduct the interviews. Is that a reasonable assumption? I asked because it may be a showstopper for a few to participate. They're extremely protective of their geographic locations. I told them I'm here for a certain period of time. Let me know if I can be of assistance. And I said also, I wonder if you've done any research on me. Do you know who I am or just some guy you saw in a YouTube interview? Anyway, that's what I said to CNN. Please do a video on the Falkland Islands. Okay, all right. Yep. Falkland is southwest of South Africa, close to Sandwich Islands. On the way to the Antarctic. Flying Dutchman, it's not much, but many small fish fill the bucket. That's true. Lots of small fish fill a bucket. Been voting for Cape exit from Gauteng. We have a place in the USA, but because we want to make it work, I'll put in all effort. Okay, Alts. Very funny about the Falkland Islands. Were there any goats? I'm very familiar with the war. I remember it. Be careful of CNN. Okay. Oh, that's why my sound is off. Okay, Mad Max is donating. Thank you, Mad Max. 35 Rand. Wait, now we're getting a few super chats coming. We don't have one last chance to take Destiny and make a state. We have created multiple. Huh? CNN is not advocated by Trump. Why does the news not mention that the Hawks guy who was murdered by the Army was busy investigating the Lady R matter? That I didn't know. Mad Max, I was unaware of that. I didn't know that. I never thought of going to Falkland if the whites have to get the fork out of South Africa. Please make a music video on the Falkland Islands. Reliable, unbiased journalism, Chris. You have been a blessing for us during this time. You're welcome. Thank you for being here, Michaela Bernardi. Shani Schneeman. Awesome. Wow, you really hammered the questions to them. It's great. Absolutely need for clarity. Well, Shani, that's how I do everything. That's how my interviews are, too. I don't always get to all the questions because time is a limit sometimes, but that's how I handle everything. That's how, when I do a story, these are questions running through my head, things like that, you know. Liz Herneval, thank you. Praying and trusting for a good outcome. Thank you. I'll send you details on WhatsApp, says Mad Max, okay? Is it easy to hire car guards in a full... you can hire sheep guards. A lot of Facebook events since the various people from the USA. I look at their profiles and block them. Also notice activity. Yeah, Adriana. So if you ever try to contact me on Facebook, folks, you're going to be unsuccessful. My Facebook profile is closed. I've got some family members and a few professional contacts from back in the day, but my Facebook is closed. You might see my corporate page for Indaba Africa, which I don't use much anymore. I only keep Facebook in self-defense. It's not a good platform. He did address me as a Colonel Ants. He did. He addressed me as a Colonel in the first email. Yep. We aren't Mealy Pop last month and applied for passports for the kids. Yep. Seeing anything will be very biased. Well, that's potentially true, Awkward Leon. That's why I said it's not going to be easy to convince people. So, you know, if they didn't ask for me, but if they want to interview me, I'm willing to take that risk. Because I've got better defenses than most people, because I've worked with media for a long time in and out of government. Doesn't mean I'm perfect at protecting things, but I'm happy to do it if no one else is. St. Helena's closer. Yeah, but St. Helena sucks. The Falklands are larger. There's more opportunity there. In St. Helena, Arctic has been there. He could tell you all about St. Helena. Yep. Well, I can't close my Facebook because Army services and government services are often on Facebook. I didn't even know Nissan was still producing cars in South Africa, so that's quite frankly a surprise to me. In USA, there are people with farms, animals, and pets who want to go on vacation and need people to watch their property. There you go. There's a farm guard. You can be a farm guard in America. Righty. Okay. Grandfather was a POW at St. Helena. Yep. Wow. From the Boer War, your grandfather? How old are you, El Marie? Don't answer that question. Sat at Absa for 4 hours, says Lynn last week. Sorry to hear that. Thanks for everything you do for our saint. Have a great 4th of July. Hopefully next year we'll be able to celebrate in USA, says Tom Poltgeter. Farm guard. That's right, Shawnee. Farm guards. Farm guards. We don't have car guards. We have farm guards. El Marie says I won't answer. I told you not to. Grandfather built a church in St. Helena. He was a missionary. Okay, Winston, don't mention your age either. Some people do dog sitter work in USA. Yeah, that's true. Yep. South Africa deepens global trade ties for landmark AEO agreements with USA, India, and UK. What? What are you talking about? Where do you get that from? There it is from the government. This week, the South African Revenue Service marked a historic milestone in Brussels by signing 3 mutually recognizable arrangements for the Authorized Economic Operator Program. SARS is partnering with U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, UK. Okay. South Africa becomes the first country in the African continent to achieve MRA with the United States. Okay. This significantly enhances competitiveness of local exporters that choose to join SARS program benefiting from SARS network. So what does that mean? What does that mean? It's not going to stop the tariffs. It's not going to stop the tariffs. Your work scale is rather crazy. How many hours do you actually spend in prep and normal video production, edit, release, and streaming, and do you actually get sleep at all? I don't get much sleep at all because, like a boss studio, I have other obligations. I have other travel plans. I have consulting to do. I have veterans volunteer work that I do. And I'm also a judge of elections, which it's only twice a year, but it's interfering in my week next week. Plus I've got a life. So I work all the time. Although today I didn't get up till late. Man, I was knackered yesterday. Yesterday was a tough day. I found myself almost falling asleep during my radio program. It was all I could do to stay conscious last night. I was exhausted. Then I did the live stream later on. We made new songs last night. We did the Meerkat. You guys want to hear the Meerkat song? That was fun. That was fun last night. Okay. Hang on, let me go to Suno. We'll do that. Oh, we did Dim the Lights last night with Natalie too. Should pay you and cover all your expenses to do the interviews on their behalf. Yeah, that would be better.
Yeah, dim the lights, Natalie, it's time to vibe it. Pulling moves so slick, I'm coming live. South Africa's groove, let the rhythm flow. Where the city lights shine and the trumpets blow. Oh, Mr. President, do you know the way? Where the streets are loud and the people play. Ramaphosa's trip, oh, the mission fell flat. But the spirit's still strong now. Imagine that. Dim the lights and let's paint the night. The world's watching close through a global sight. From the hills of Pretoria to the Cape Shore, feel the beat of the nation they can't ignore. Oi. Oh, Mr. President, do you know the way? Where the streets are loud and the people play. Ramaphosa's trip, oh, the mission fell flat. But the spirit's still strong now, imagine that. It's a journey of hope and a story untold, where dreams are made and the hearts are bold. America may listen, but the mission's unclear. Still the rhythm of the land keeps the vibe sincere. Oh, Mr. President, do you know the way? Where the streets are loud and the people play. Ramaphosa's trip, oh, the mission fell flat. But the spirit's still strong now, imagine that.
Good stuff, man. That's good stuff. And then last night we did this. That was Dim the Lights, Natalie. And then we did this one here last night. 1980s vibe, OMD. Modern talking. Meerkats in space.
Little meerkats in their suits so tight, rockets blazing through the cosmic night. Eyes on the prize in the Martian dust, tiny paws holding interstellar lust. Leading the way they leap through the stars. It's the meerkats' mission to claim Mars. Building homes under crimson skies, a brand new world through their clever eyes.
Yeah, Depeche Mode. I'll go with that, Charles.
They scurry quick past the asteroid rain. Through solar winds they feel no pain. Digging tunnels in the Martian ground. Echoes of chirps the only sound. Leading the way they leap through the stars. It's the meerkats' mission to claim Mars. Building homes under crimson skies. A brand new
Mars.
Leading the way, they lead through the stars. It's the meerkat's mission to claim Mars. Building homes under crimson skies. A brand new world through their clever eyes.
The meerkats in space. Will the meerkats get to Mars before Elon Musk? Time will tell. Meerkat's mission to Mars. All right, with that, folks, we're going to wrap it up, and I'm going to see if I can't get down to Gettysburg. Dina Mal down there, so it'll be a late broadcast to see the Gettysburg battlefield. Yeah, Woodpeckers from Space inspired that, Freya. That's why I came up with Meerkats in Space. Woodpeckers from Space. Yes, I remember that. The video is awesome. No, I have the 45 still. I have the Woodpeckers from Space 45 in the basement. Yep, Flying Dutchman. Can you say hi to Chai and CJ? Your daughters danced to all my music, especially Save South Africa and the Colonel Wyatt song. Well, hello, is it Shay and CJ? I apologize if I pronounced that wrong, Shay. Hello to both of you guys. Ronell, seems that the pic I sent you was done just in time for Independence Day. Did you send? Oh, you mean the one about the eagle? That's pretty cool. I want a meerkat. They're really cool. As long as Malema doesn't get to Mars before anyone else. Same as the clothing. Thank you for the super chats, guys. All right, guys, have a good one. You're going to be redirected. Drink whiskey. When was I drinking whiskey? You'll be redirected to Ronaldo's live stream. He's with Katya Bean right now. So I hope that you enjoy that. Let's take a look how many people are watching over there. Okay. There's an advert. Let's get rid of the advert first. And how's he doing? He's got 199 watch. I think a lot of people left here in the last few minutes because they abandoned because they didn't like the music. All right, that's going to do it. Thanks, folks. You'll be redirected over there. Appreciate you being here. Cheers. Be sure to hit the like button before you go. Thanks.